Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 344, a look at Green Lantern's universe, part 2. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the Whatnot Segulin, and the Duke of You Know, and from the blog of OA and the podcast of OA, longtime friend of the show, Myron Rumsey. And Myron, welcome back to the show, and hey, Jim.
How's it going, eh?
Hey, good to talk to everybody.
We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. On this episode, we're going to be talking Green Lantern number 17, Green Lantern Corps number 17, Green Lantern New Guardians number 17, and Threshold number 2. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, they're offering a really cool DC Kids bundle. I'm a big fan of all ages material, and you can get all 3 DC Kids books. They're regularly $8.97, 50% off, only $4.48. This includes Batman Little Gotham number 2, Green Lantern the Animated Series number 13, and Scooby-Doo Where Are You number 33. So this is great if you've got kids in your life, or like me, if you like and enjoy reading all ages material. It's a great opportunity to get those at a deal. They're also offering all DC Comics trades and hardcovers for pre-order at 50% off. So it's a great opportunity to grab all those at an amazing deal. What that means is if you shop at DCBService.com and you link your Comixology account or your Diamond Digital iVerse account to your DCB Service account, every purchase that you make, you get 5% towards your DCB Service order. This is a great way to help out our show sponsors by linking those accounts, but also to get yourself some credit. It doesn't cost you any more to do it, and you earn some money towards purchases of yourself. I think it's a great opportunity. Over at InStockTrades.com, this book is a personal favorite of mine, The Shade. The 12-issue miniseries. If you've never read The Shade before, this is a masterpiece by James Robinson. He has artists like Cully Hamner, Darwin Cook, Jay Bone, Javier Pulido, Jill Thompson, Fraser Irving, and Gene Ha. Cover artist was Tony Harris. This is a 280-page trade paperback. $19.99 regularly, 50% off, only $9.99. That's over at InStockTrades.com, where orders of $50 or more will get you free shipping. I want to thank both of those sites for continuing to support our show. Oh, James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
I have on my periwinkle ring, so I have no idea what to say to that. Let's talk some comics.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
All right, guys. I kind of can't I'm not going to reveal what it is, but they just told me about the New York Post article with Grant Morrison, which kind of, spills the beans on the Batman Inc. issue. And it was kind of funny. I was like, let's Green Lantern. Boy, it's hard to, how do you follow that?
First time we've ever really heard you speechless.
Yeah, don't worry, that'll change. It's only been like 36 seconds.
Which is a new miracle for you. So,
well, yeah. I'm still talking. Anyway, Green Lantern number 17. The writer is Jeff Johns, Dan Jurgens on layouts, Phil Jimenez finishes on the prologue art, Doug Monkey pencils, Tom Wen, Keith Champagne, Mark Irwin, Christian Almay, and Monkey on inks, Alex Sinclair and Tony Avina on colors, Dave Sharp letterer, Monkey, Irwin, and Sinclair cover, Will Moss associate editor, and Matt Idelson editor. And this was a very, very big issue because it kicks off a story arc that I didn't know how this was going to play out. And it's like part 1's in this book, part 2's in the next book, part 3. But I do still like the way that each book has like this contained story, giving us like, first of all, the background of the First Lantern, his motivation. And it's funny, I don't know if you guys had this experience. As I was reading this story, I found that my relationship with the First Lantern changed as it went on. Like at first I was very sympathetic to him, But as it progressed over the issues that we're going to be talking about, I was pretty convinced the guy's a bad dude. But I don't know if you guys had that experience with him. But like in the beginning, I was kind of like, "Ooh, this dude was wronged," and I didn't know who I was supposed to root for. I liked that. I liked like trying to figure out where this was going. You know, am I supposed to be on the side of the Guardians? Am I supposed to be on his side? Are the Lanterns, you know, like their own thing, and this is going to be a front war? I didn't know. I liked the way that this started off because it was giving us a little history, a little background, going back to the beginning of Lantern lore. But what about you guys? Where were you kind of at with this? What do you think of the first Lantern as we've gotten to know him so far?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I'm still not sure how to take him. You know, we see him arrive, and he almost has a bit of a crazy look on his face. But he says he comes in peace, and we really don't know how they got from point A to point B. So I'm kind of wondering, what did the Guardians do to him that turned him from the way he looks when he first arrives to the way we see him later in the issue? And, you know, it's funny. I was looking at the appearance of Volthoom in general. I'm thinking about the history of the character because we know that he was the power source for Power Ring, you know, with the crime syndicate. That maybe Jeff Johns is kind of taking history and tweaking a little bit. If you take Volthoom and you color his hair brown and his eyes brown, he looks an awful lot like Hal Jordan.
Oh, okay.
I almost wonder, is this an alternate version? Is this like an Earth 3 Hal that's possessed by Volthoom? And if so, that would explain why the Guardians have always had this fear of Hal.
Yeah. Oof.
Actually I never noticed that. I like that theory.
Look at the outfit he's in, too.
Yeah.
It almost could be a pilot's outfit. I mean, if you really want to stretch and, like, go for... I mean, I could see a certain path to that. That wasn't what... Obviously, I didn't think that way at all, but I can certainly see that being a possibility. I don't know a whole lot about Volthoom. And obviously, for all of us, this could be a very clean slate with Volthoom.
Oh, yeah.
So... It's always fun to see what direction this particular character is going to go in. One of the things that I really liked about the character and the nature of his power set was this ability to start to alter time. Like, he wasn't powerful enough yet to permanently do it, but he was able to take people on a journey of what time frames would actually look like with different choices. And it was interesting that he chose Ganthet to take through this journey, because we get to see that, you know, Ganthet, it's clear that we know what happened to Ganthet and how he was altered and manipulated by the other Guardians. But we see throughout Ganthet's history that he was like this one that was the voice of reason, the one that was saying, you know, speaking up on behalf of being devil's advocate, so to speak, when it came to Volthoom even. And Volthoom remembers this. And that was something I really enjoyed because it rang very true to how I've always seen Ganthet, as him being the one that wasn't afraid to be the guardian that would step outside the others, be rational enough that you could see why the others would listen to him. But also you could see why they would get annoyed by him because of the fact that he would do it so often, because he didn't really always feel the need to toe the party line to go like a political route with him. Which was very interesting about it. I really enjoyed that development in this because it was nice to see the Ganthet that I love.
Well, it was neat, too, to see how Ganthet's emotions were stored on Maltus, and that's what that's what we saw in Red Lantern 16. We saw all the souls or emotions or what have you, and it was Ganthet's emotions that were there, and that tendril was chopped off. I just thought that was really cool, and that explains why Ganthet has always been so different from everybody else.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to go, it's weird, the process that I'm going through, because you mentioned how you don't know exactly how to take this guy, you know, and throughout this process, I've done a lot of flip-flopping on him, and even just now in the discussion, I'm looking at him still a little bit different, where you try to understand someone's point of view. You've been in prison for like a millennium, you're going to strike out and you're going to lash out, and you're seeing him initially attack the Guardians, go, no, I need a little bit more power, so now he's going elsewhere and attacking in the other issues the other characters. Now, it's in the end, what is he going to do with that power? Is he going to be the madman, evil villain that needs to be put down? Is he going to try to right wrongs? Where is he going to go? What's he going to play out? We still don't completely know his motivation and his actions, what he's going to do, but it's one of those he's one of those interesting villains that I'll call him a villain just because he is torturing people, but in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking maybe this guy could be actually turn this around and show us that he wasn't really the bad guy.
Well, isn't it interesting too that he's trying to do what Hal did when he became Parallax, trying to rewrite history in the way that he sees it should be. I think that's just really kind of interesting.
And again, throwing out the Hal Jordan comparison, that is just something that has really still blown my mind. Going, I wonder if this is that version of Hal, because looking at his costume again, you kind of see what looks to be almost an American flag-ish type patch on his uniform. So he definitely could be some type of representative of an America.
Anyone else think that Baz and the Bedig are like the Rocky and Bullwinkle of DC Universe?
We got confirmation in this issue that his name is Badge.
Was it Badge?
Because one of the internal dialogues that Baz has is his name sounds like Badge.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So right there. So we now know how to pronounce his name. It's Badge.
I think there was a cutscene too where Baz says to Badge, "Hey Badge, watch me pull a rabbit out of my ring."
I'm loving Baz. I actually, seeing him with Black Hand, to me it always impresses me when you see a new hero. You see that there is a certain amount of shock and fear when they meet these villains. But then, one thing I like about Baz is his ability to pull out of that determination and to just handle things a little bit differently than the other Lanterns would, which is, I think, the strength of all of the Lanterns that we're fans of. And I think that's something, since Rebirth, I think that's something that consistently has been shown in the DC Universe, is that each Lantern, no matter what their background is, their constructs really come from their background, their personality, who they are, what they've created. And that's something that Baz, really has that in droves, too. And I think that's, moving forward, is something that I hope really continues in these books. Because I really like that personality. And it adds something more to the Ring than it just being a flying fist. I always liked that as a kid, don't get me wrong. I liked the flying fist, the hammer, and stuff like that. The stuff that Hal used to do, I'm talking about in the book. So I'm not knocking any of that. But you associate certain things like that with Hal. It's nice that when you've got a different guy wearing the Ring, that things that you previously associated with the long, rich history of the Green Lantern universe are unique and tweaked, and all because of their background and the things. Hal, you wouldn't be uncommon to see Hal wish up a aircraft of some sort to, attack his enemies. But that fits his background.
Yeah, and when John armors up and he goes full, Marine Corps sniper, and I always love just seeing when that pops in, and he's in the full battle gear. He's got the sniper rifle in hand, and he's shooting that way. I always, just the personalization of it is actually kind of a neat thing, and seeing Baz start to get familiarity with this, starting to get, a level beyond this. Of course, the issue doesn't end too well for him, but going through it, I'm like, yeah, all right, he's doing a good job.
Yeah, that's really been kind of a hallmark of Jeff Johns' run, in trying to bring back all the characters. He gave each one of them a unique voice in the way they used the Ring. Because, yeah, like you said, Sean, it used to be that everybody did, the artist would always draw a fist or something very simplistic, and you see throughout this run how every character's got their own unique take on how they use the Ring. And I think it's great because it distinguishes one character from the other, as you say, and it adds personality to everything that they do.
Yeah, and I think there's an incentive, I think we see this especially in the Green Lantern Corps book. There's been an incentive to really develop the background of each Lantern. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy that book so much, is it's really great when they explore an alien race, or, Sornik is one of those characters that I always go back to Sornik as being just one of my favorite recently developed Green Lanterns. And we don't see her as much anymore since the New 52, but that was a character when they developed her. I really felt like, because of her medical background and things like that, we got to see a very different Lantern. It's not just her, the Ranian and the Thanagarian and their whole relationship as they were going on, and the political struggle, but again, two different creative beings that manifested their ring slinging in very different ways. And that's what it's been really fun to see ring slinging, that whole concept of it really being something that is unique. I think it makes it even cooler. This is supposed to be one of the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, right? it really feels like that with the way it's been developed now, and I think that is really refreshing and fun. Now,
definite.
The Ganthet sequence where we get to see that whole puppet master thing and the Guardians basically having to choose to keep their emotions. There was a real creep factor to that. I think that if there's one thing that I think would freak me out more than anything else, it's some sort of awareness that my life is being manipulated without any control. You know what I mean? The idea of being, like, it's not that Ganthet isn't aware of this. Like, as he's doing this, we've seen as the issues have progressed in this, these characters have some, at least a subconscious awareness of things changing around them. And that, something's not right. To realize that this guy, yes, Ganthet, my puppet, do this. I don't know. That to me is one of the creepier things. That's like horror movie creepy for me, because I guess it's that free will being taken away and your whole life being changed, and the history then that would be altered because of said move. I mean, that really, literally, that pivotal moment changes everything that we know.
But I'm reading this, he didn't have enough power to actually make the change happen.
I know, but I'm saying that's a pivotal event that he was manipulating and trying to change. If he succeeded there, that would change I mean, obviously it didn't, because we see in the other issues that we continue down on the other Lanterns. But I'm saying he started right away. Look what he went to first. As one of his first acts that we saw, he went to the one thing that really, if that succeeded and he actually changed that, wouldn't that make everything else a moot point in all the other issues that we read?
Sure. And I think what's really important about that scene is it really underscores exactly what level of a threat the First Lantern is. Yeah,
and just, to me, this is where I felt sympathetic for him in this issue. And it's funny with what I'm saying. It's really bizarre to say that. But, I think we saw what the Guardians did to him and how long he's been locked away, and then using him as a power source. I think my relationship with the Guardians is so strained right now that, this guy was sympathetic to me throughout most of this issue. But as this storyline goes on, my relationship with the First Lantern, with Volthoom, drastically changes. I've really got a very different take. It's even this scene right now as I'm talking about it. It's funny. I think the first time through when I read it very differently than I'm reading it. And I'm even looking at it now as I'm going through. I'm like, boy, he's left a nasty taste in my mouth, this guy.
Yeah, he's starting to show the darkness, starting to show the twisted, and even when the Guardians are first debating about him, saying whether it was the emotion that drove him mad or whether he was mad coming over, he's quick to point out, I wasn't mad when I came here. And that's the whole. I think he protests a little bit too much. So we got a crazy guy with a lot of power.
I like the sequence with Baz and Black Hand, where Baz changed into Abin Sur. And Hand was still William Hand. Interesting that, because of that alteration of events, there is no Black Hand.
Yeah.
Well, it's because wasn't Black Hand was created because when Abin Sur actually died. So if Abin Sur never died, Black Hand was never created, which means Hal was never a Green Lantern, or any of the other Earth Lanterns were never Green Lanterns.
Correct. Yeah, because we saw in Secret Origin when Abin Sur crash landed on Earth with Atrocitus, that's when they encountered William Hand, and that set all of his destiny on its path.
I think it's really funny that I'm making this big speech about the uniqueness of all the lanterns and how it was only Hal that used the fist and the hammers and stuff like that. I've got Baz using a hammer. But he uses it in a way that nobody
uses a carpenter's hammer.
Yes.
Which again, because you think about it, Baz is most normal people are gonna think, okay, I gotta break glass, I'm gonna make a hammer. That's a normal creation.
Right. I just thought it was funny in lieu of what I was saying before. But I actually really like the way he used it. I find that I am endlessly fascinated now by Baz. Anything Baz could do, to me, he does no wrong, which is very strange considering, the initial kickoff of the character. But I really find, right now, I'm Baz happy. I think, it's funny how the relationship he had with Agent Fed, I think as Fed became more into him, Fed was kind of like my latching on point to Baz. As he started to become skeptical of the evidence and started to build a open-mindedness of sorts to Baz. And then we had that moment where the two of them kind of had that meeting of the minds and understanding, almost like the fist bump.
Yeah.
between the two of them. I really found that, like, I got to the point where I'm like, wow, I've come, like, full circle. I really am digging Baz and his whole journey. It wasn't that abrupt. It was, a trickle along the way. But I do think it's funny how, looking back on it now, I think for myself personally, my gateway to developing an understanding of Baz was driven very much by Fed's journey, which I think is kind of neat because of, the Fed being really a small supporting cast member during all that.
Yeah, and it's, one of the things about Baz that does make him really neat Lantern is that he's had no formal training. He's not the seasoned veteran, and he's thrust in the middle of this massive major event. And I love the fact that when he breaks the Guardians, the trapped Guardians out, he's like, I hope I didn't just make a mistake. It's just that very real reaction that we're getting from this guy, and he's the kind of hero that I'm enjoying reading and just following his pattern and just following him through this process where he's kind of stumbling along. He's got the most powerful weapon on his hand, and he doesn't completely realize just how much power he has there. And he's going through the process trying to figure out what's going on. Let me try this. Let me try that. And that's, again, it's a very realistic, reaction, a very human reaction to these supernatural, crazy events.
Myron, is this the page, this one where Volthoom's holding up, the Blue Lantern, Atrocitus, St. Walker, I should say, Atrocitus. I think that's Carol. And then, we got John and Guy and Kyle. But then he's holding Hal and he's talking about his rebirth. Is that what's making you think that? Because I got to be honest with you, looking at that sequence now, I will totally admit I didn't see it anywhere like that at the time. But looking at him now, looking straight at Hal, holding him there, saying, and witness my rebirth. Very interesting that he's holding Hal there. Is that what you're talking about? Is like, this is where you're starting to get some of this from?
That's when I read it through. That was what triggered it in my head. And then I was like, no, it couldn't be. And then I started looking back at the beginning of the issue and looking at how he looked before he changed into this translucent, powerful entity to see what he looked like when he first came through. I'm like, oh my gosh, what a neat little subtle way to he's holding Hal's face and saying, witnessing my rebirth. What a perfect, if that's what he's doing, that's a great way to plant the seed.
I think that's cool. Yeah. If that's not it, boy, they're kind of swerving me too now with the whole thing.
I'll tell you, man, I did, and it was funny because when I read that through, I'm thinking, immediately I think rebirth, I think the whole rebirth process. I wasn't even remotely thinking the connection between the two of them, but now I'm like, yeah, it makes perfect sense.
I like the whole bit at the end with Baz. You want to find Hal Jordan? Why don't you join him in death? And he said, I love Sinestro. Please tell me you aren't the human who was supposed to rescue us. What a great ending to the issue.
Now, speculations. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Baz has been brought into this death or wherever it is, but you look at the image, he still's got his ring. I wonder how much power, what does the power, the crossover into that universe? Is there still some juice left in the ring? Can Baz still do some stuff? Or is this the equalizer that gets them out?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. It would be interesting to see if Baz can do anything. If he knows no limitations, he could be very well capable of getting all three of them out.
Plus, they still got Badge on the other side with the book.
True.
It's all, to me, just very, wow. It's funny how, you go from one story arc to the other, and I'm just, I wanted to know more immediately. They do a really good job of giving us a lot of information, a lot of story, while at the same time teasing us into the whole thing. Like, there was a lot that happened in that issue. But at the end, we're really left with this point where he's just getting hooked up with Hal and Sinestro.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at the three guys he's surrounded with. Three of the veterans that have been through so much. And giving them the ability to work with Baz and have that ring, it could go anywhere.
Can we talk about Green Lantern Corps number 17?
We have Peter Tomasi, story in words. Fernando, Pasarin on pencils. Inker is Scott Hanna. Gabe, Eltaeb, with Will Quintani as colorist. Dave Sharp, letterer. Andy Kubert and Brad Anderson on cover. Will Moss, associate editor. Matt Idelson, editor.
I loved this issue because now we've gone from not really seeing the First Lantern interact with one of our Green Lanterns, but now we see him directly interacting with Guy.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys. Were you kind of worried as this story was going on that this guy was making real permanent changes to Guy's background? Because there's a certain point in the issue where I started feeling like, oh boy, is some of this going to stick?
I never saw it as permanent changes. I was able to kind of see it as like kind of a vampiric, sucking on life energy and stuff like that. So I was getting a little worried about Guy as this goes on, just because Guy is just a walking ball of emotion. And he's the character that the New 52 has really been, benefited for me, that I'm really enjoying this character. I'm really enjoying him. He's one of those guys that I do worry about, and I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen to Guy now? Because he went complete 180 on my opinion on him throughout the New 52 as we're seeing more of this universe's Guy Gardner. So throughout this process, I was worried, but I wasn't worried there wasn't going to be any permanent changes on it. And it was this issue that really helped me cement that he doesn't have the power yet to permanently change stuff. But should he start changing stuff, there's going to be some dramatic changes, and there's going to be some what's going to happen here.
But isn't he pulling power off of the emotion that he's invoking by these characters? So I guess what I'm saying is, as he's getting more powerful here, is some of what he's doing here making changes to these characters? Because, like, Guy even says at the end, he says to the guy, you still don't understand what I've been doing all this time, Lantern Gardner. If this is what I want, then this is what is. Are you not taking that at face value? Is that him just psychologically working him? Or, because I guess I was kind of wondering. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's funny how my head's wondering about the possibilities of all that. Because, when Volthum's saying that at that point, woof.
Yeah, and if it's when he has the power levels to make it permanent, he can do that. I think that was more of a Volthum saying, hey, if I want to do this, I can. Now, I don't personally think he's at the power levels that he could do this. So when he reaches that point, Guy's world is going to get turned upside down because it amuses him. He's going to do whatever he wants to Guy. I don't think he's at the level yet to do it, which is part of the reason why he's still feeding off of Guy.
Yeah, that's the way I read it too, is that he's trying to build his power level up to make permanent changes, and he's kind of taunting him at the end just because that he's going to elicit more emotion to feed off of.
So he's feeding him these possibilities, the genuine possibilities of what would happen there if he did these things to evoke the emotions that are giving him the most power?
Yeah, I think what he's doing is he's taking what energy he's got, siphoning it not siphoning it, but using it to trigger things in Guy, which generates more energy than what he puts into it, and that's allowing him to slowly charge himself up.
That poor little kid when they fall into the ice. And I think it's ironic that Guy's got a green, hockey stick that he's using that isn't working.
Well, and I love just how you get the first version of what actually happened, then you get the next version where, let's say here, you fail, and your father just hates you for it. Because we've already seen that Guy and his father have issues. And later in this issue, we see how Guy lost his badge, which is the beginning and the end of all the issues that he has with his dad. And you get this great sibling rivalry, and it's not even, I don't even want to say sibling rivalry. It's just the fact that Guy's older brother is just this great person and he's got to deal with the fact that his older brother is so much better than him. And it's, you kind of see, again, more samples of that throughout this process where his older brother was able to save him and his little sister, but Guy wasn't able to save them. But throughout this, you see Guy's courage because Guy's in the water. He's got his little sister draped over his neck saying, hey, hold on, I'll help, and Guy's reaching for the stick. So it's his brother did save him, but Guy also did a lot of heroics in that water, which he doesn't get recognition for.
Now, yeah, it was interesting, and I thought it was so powerful, especially the sequence in the end when he's the cop and you find out how he got banned from the force. It was a great payoff for all that we saw built up, through these last 6 or 7 issues at least, of Guy's character and the tough choice he had to make and how not easy it was for him at this stage in his life. It adds so much extra dimension to him as to how we view him now.
It's funny. We see that sequence again where, Guy originally makes the choice. And I got to say, that has got to be for anyone in law enforcement when you have to make that call. Or I would even say in the military. any position where you're in where it's about saving lives, where I think in the movies a lot of times, there's a romanticizing where the hero gets away with saving everybody and saving the day, but you don't often see these moments, which are I think very genuine and very real, where somebody in that position has to make the split-second choice of saying, do I save a huge amount of people by sacrificing a few? Or, do I let things play out and risk a larger amount of people? The trauma of having to make that choice, which I think, the right call, unfortunately, is the call that Guy made. You have to make that judgment call where you would ultimately look at, wow, if I don't act now, I'm going to times 7 the whole, situation that I'm causing here. So I've really got to put this guy down. And yes, a few people are going to get hurt. Or a few people are going to die. But the death toll, if I don't do this here and now, is going to be astronomical. That's got to be an amazingly tough call for anyone in those positions. It's something that I will hopefully never have to experience in my life. There's nothing in my career path that would, but my respect level for the people that are in that position where they might have to do that. And I don't know how you find the strength to make that call, because you have to. Otherwise, you're going to have so much death. It was an interesting bit, and I was surprised at how much that struck me, because we got to see what happened when it changed.
Yeah. It is funny, this sequence, reading through this, how Guy lost his badge. 'Cause that was actually something I was really looking forward to, and I really wanted to know what happened that he was able to, he had to get, kicked out of the force, because that we see, in issue 0 and everything, how it just really affects his relationship with his family and everything, who he is, because the fact that he's no longer a cop, because he was kicked off the force. And as this plays out, in the real world, I don't know if he would have lost his badge over this, because on one hand, I can understand where it's coming from, and I can see it playing out how they could very easily take his badge for this, saying he made the wrong call. It's the judgment choicing of he should have stood down, he should have let hostage negotiators handle this, he shouldn't have taken the shot. But on the other hand, a lot of times you get the police union, you get the blue wall that protects their own, and they would kind of go to bat for him and say, no, he made the right call. This was a split-second decision, and I could see Guy Gardner keeping his badge even after shooting the guy with the bomb that kills all those people. I could see them making those arguments and fighting on his behalf. So it's kind of a cool issue, segment for me, that I went a completely different route when I'm reading this, and I was rereading it again because I started really thinking off page as to the trial, as to the hearings, as to everything that happens. And I love the fact that they included just those little bits where they first show him at the hearing. Then they show him later where he's turning in his badge. This wasn't just a quick split-second decision, okay, you're gone. This was a lengthy process. So it's funny. I want more on just this sequence of Guy losing his badge. I want to see the trial. I want to see the hearings. I want more on this guy. And this is a guy this is a character I didn't like before. And I want more of this background on him.
You know what, Jim, here's the thing I want to talk about there, though. It's funny how a lot of the stuff you're talking about off camera where you're saying, the police union coming in, stuff like that. But couldn't Guy, out of guilt, because I know this is true in my case, being a part of his teachers union, Guy has the right to having representation by the union, but he also has the right to deny himself it out of guilt.
Yes, and he definitely...
Because he's there alone. If you take a look at it, he's standing there alone.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God, yeah, exactly, dude. Guy could have, very easily, turned down the representation, or could have even been found not guilty and found, okay, Guy, everything's going to go away. Don't worry, we got your back. And have him say no and turn in his badge and gun.
Yes.
This could be Guy quitting the force, not being kicked off the force, which, again, would add to the whole, family judgment, family trial, and just, inner family turmoil that he walked away from being a cop. And it's, it kind of, again, there's so much more on this story that we're seeing this, but I want so much more detail. I want a whole issue of just the fall of Guy Gardner.
What if, though, he decided to go to Disneyland in between? Like, there's a whole sequence you don't see right there, and he's just kind of like, you know what, enough, I'm going to bail. I'm seeing Mickey. No?
Of all the Green Lanterns, I think Guy is the least likely to say, I think I'm going to go to Disney World for a little while. I'll just hang out with the mouse.
I'm only laughing because of how much we're talking about stuff that's happening in that green line. Like, what do you think's behind there? That's one thing I love about comics.
One panel of one page has got, and I seriously, this one panel.
No, that's a line. We're talking about a line. There is no panel there. We're talking about the stuff that happened in the line between when Guy hands in his badge and when he's standing there alone.
Isn't that the benefit for the digital readers? You can really zoom in on that image and see what was.
Well, it's a much bigger line.
What he's actually doing there, if you look closely, he's burning his uniform. That's him throwing his hat onto the fire, and his jacket's already in there. So Guy is burning his uniform in that sequence, which again gets me thinking of.
We're still on the green. We're still on the green line before that. You're jumping over to the purple line. That's a whole other ball game. But I see
the image of Guy Gardner on the teacups with Mickey.
Yeah. Well, that's like in that reddish orange line. That's in the. No, Jim, you're right though. That's that guy with his uniform. That has got to be, I would imagine, in any career, to hit that point where this was your career path. You had chosen this life and have gone so far down whatever path he took from. Our serious speculation we were talking back there with what was going on with Guy, to get to that point, to sit there and say that you are so distraught or emotionally changed with that life, because I got to be careful how I word it because we don't really know the path that it went down. But to have that trauma hit that point where you're burning your uniform and you don't want on any level to have a connection to that life, that's huge.
It's kind of a cop-out.
Grown. Outstanding, but Hold on. For that one, you get a.
Thank God I've got a sneeze guard.
But again, it's funny because you just start. I try to compare. You try to pull yourself into the real world. Pull them into the real world, or pull myself into the comic world. And the fact that if Guy did walk away, if Guy did step down, is to step down from to being he's a cop family. This is his father and brothers, his little sister. Eventually, everybody associated with the Gardner family is known as being a cop. For Guy to willingly walk away from that would be huge, especially if it's perceived due to cowardice or due to him quitting or him giving up the fight. That could be, again, huge moment. And it could also really affect just, like we saw in issue 0 with, how his sister graduating, how that affected him, how his dealing with his father really is messed up, and his brother, that kind of relationship with the brother when he first gets the ring, when he once again is a cop, but he's a cop with some superpowers. Just that whole process, all this stuff kind of puts in more pictures, more pieces of the puzzle behind Guy Gardner, and he's a character that I'm getting protective of, and I don't want to lose this character. I don't want to lose this level of understanding that I have with him. And it's, anytime I start getting that association with a character, I start getting that connection with them, and then they announce a new creative team, I do get a little worried. And I'm going to sit back and I'm going to have trust that the next group coming in is going to be just as passionate as our current group we're getting, because I don't think DC is just going to throw anybody at that. They're going to pick the right they're going to pick the right people coming in. But this always adds to my excitement, especially because we've had these great story arcs after story arcs, and even we said, how do they with the Third Army, how do you match? How do you follow that up? Well, you follow it up with the Wrath of the First Lantern. This is something huge, and we're in only part 2, and I'm already going, oh my God, this guy's got some power. What the heck's going to play? How's this going to happen? How is the Green Lantern's going to stop him? And we're going to end, John's run on this. The first question you always say is, who's going to follow this? How are they going to follow this? Man.
Did Red Lantern Gardner go all Wolverine and Kyle? I mean, wasn't that like the pop in the claw?
It's Red Yellow Lantern Gardner.
Yeah.
He's got yellow as well, which
and green.
Yeah.
So he's got all of the wow.
Yeah, he's got a full spectrum there, which, again, I can see him, Guy Gardner with that much power could really take down the Corps.
It's funny how when you see him in this light, you kind of see elements of Guy Gardner Warrior in there as well with the weapons that he's using and stuff like that. I really liked seeing kind of an amalgamation of everything we've kind of seen in Guy with that high emotional sequence. And I liked the way that played out, showing how a pivotal event can really send you on a path where we saw how easy it was for him to succumb to rage, how because of as evolved as he's been, he's able to overcome that. He's disciplined himself. Jim, you talked about how your relationship with Guy has changed. I think we've seen him become the guy that can overcome that. But this isn't that guy. Due to these events, I really liked the way this played out. I love deep character focuses where you do alternate realities. You teach us something new about the inner fears, forks in the road, that a character can go on that could drastically change their lifespan. I've always loved the multiverse aspect of DC, and this just shows because this is the premise of the multiverse. One pivotal little event could change everything. This universe, this is where Guy becomes the Red Lantern guy, and he becomes the only Corps, or at least that's the assumption as it goes on. But I really liked how that played out, going after his friends, the people that were closest to him. What drives him there? What and was there any relationship with any of these characters before that? I don't know. It's really, really cool the way this sequence plays, especially when they're scanning for all those replacements.
Well, now you mentioned Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go back to the very beginning of the issue, that 2-page opening spread, and it shows the variations, the multiple guys. The one variation there where he's got a mace for a hand and a blaster for the other hand, is that Guy as Warrior? Because I never read the Warrior Guy. My experience in dealings with that part is very limited.
That's when he did not have a ring. And during that time, there was a stretch where he had the yellow ring. He had the Sinestro ring.
Yep, that's actually shown right in front of that image.
Yeah. This was when could he morph the power? I'm trying to remember. He could go ahead.
He had alien DNA, which allowed him to change and transform his body into weapons.
And he was a character
Could he do complex weapons or only the simple smash and stab weapons?
I didn't read a whole lot of it, but I think there was some pretty complex stuff in there.
Oh, okay.
The other thing I thought was neat about that image is seeing the anti-monitor there, because one of the things that's been a debating point for fans since Flashpoint was whether or not the anti-monitor even existed in New Continuity. So it was kind of neat to see him there.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's him and Ice in the one upper corner. There's a couple different sequences throughout this that shows throughout his life. So I'm assuming this is everything that's happened in this universe.
And now we know why he went to Disneyland, because there's nothing in this flashback issue at all.
Well, here's a question. Here's a wacky question I have for you with him. Is there a possibility these things that we're seeing here aren't all things that happened in this? Well, it says, let's see, exactly what we need to be inside your universe. So I guess technically these are things that happened to him and his universe. Yeah. So it did happen now. I guess I was trying to see if there was any possibility these were things that could have happened in other, alternate variations of Guy, but not. Boy, he really accomplished a lot in that lifespan of being Guy Gardner. Now, I liked seeing how Blackest Night played out, where, you've got this guy with all of his rage. In that moment, he's kind of faced with his family that died, that he got stuck in the ice with. And seeing how that path goes and to be haunted by them during Blackest Night. I don't know. You put him in this place where he's gone on this horrid journey, where he sees the path that his life would go on with that change. And to see it go to such depths where it really destroyed everything that Guy would have a chance to be proud of. He redeemed himself as a Lantern. And we actually got to see recently in previous issues, how even his relationship with his brother and sister is different, where, his sister's like slapping him in the head saying, what is this, bellyache and, that you're doing over there? This isn't you. Buck up and get going. And you see him basically take charge as if he had a ring when he didn't have a ring. Because, he just, I love that moment when he shouts out saying, I was a Green Lantern. Cool moment, because I really believe that, to me, is a sign. It's something I love to see in comics, when you've got a depowered hero that still takes on that role, still takes on that responsibility. It was cool, like in things like the Return of Superman, when we finally get the real Superman back and he didn't have all of his powers back yet. Guy's picking up a gun. Running around in that black outfit, but he's still taking on that leadership role of being Superman. He's not like hiding back going, I can be shot. Doomsday just killed me, and now you want me to do what when I can be shot? I'm not doing it. So I loved seeing those moments. He doesn't do that. He does that leadership role. I'm really aware of that stuff when characters are depowered, especially superpowered characters. I always like to see how they would react differently. Will they still be the hero that we expect? Because I don't know that every one of the heroes in the DC universe would necessarily step up the way they do. I think characters with the strength of character of a Clark Kent and a Guy Gardner, who guys got all kinds of spunk and attitude. These are guys who would step up anyway. But not every character in the DC universe would. And
you think about Guy just in recent issues where he still didn't have his ring back. And, Badge armors him up with enough energy basically to get him to Oa. Sends him on a full frontal assault against the Guardians, and he doesn't have a ring. And Guy's like, okay, yeah, no problem. Let's do this. That's Guy's personality. That's just him stepping up. And he went there knowing one thing, that you get me there, I'll get my ring back. I'll figure out a way, I'll bob and weave. And even then, when the Guardians are attacking him, he's laughing, going, something you guys don't understand about self-sacrifice. You don't understand this. This is something that makes us human. The whole time, Guy was just the giant distraction. Draw the little blue boys, attention away from what the actual, what Kilowog and the others were doing. And it's something that I'm so glad I'm getting to know this version of Guy Gardner now, and I'm actually getting to understand the character and get inside his head. This is a great character.
I guess here's this sequence at the end. I've still got a caution on this one. I agree with what you're saying, that he doesn't have the power right now to make this change permanent. But if he were to gain his powers, does he make that change permanent for Guy? Like, is he holding him there in those tendrils and then he can just snap if he gets enough power, make that change permanent? Can that happen?
I say yes.
I think it could. What's interesting is that we don't know. We know that for example, the New Guardians issue is part 3. He doesn't have enough power yet, at least as far as I can tell. Why does he leave Guy there? They're kind of hanging out. I'm assuming that these things are not taking place necessarily in chronological order, even though they're part 1, part 2, and part 3. I'm assuming we're going to see what happens with Guy in the next issue. But yeah, I don't know as if he's got the power yet. I don't know when he's going to reach that point. I guess that's the $1 million question.
Well, here's a funny question. What happens if the next issue, because it talks about John and Fatality, what if we see him in that issue go on to them, and it's not till the end of the story that we see all the characters come together, that we see what happened to John, what we see what happened to Kyle, we see what happened to Guy. If you follow me. Like, we're seeing him put these characters in a certain place in these tendrils. I agree with you. The possibility is that the next issue, this would continue on, and we would see further of what happened to Guy. But what if not? What if that is the cliffhanger for Guy? Guy's going to be literally left hanging around until the end of the story arc, where we then see, all the people that he's put into place.
My running theory that I've kind of got going in my head is that all of these are happening at the same time and in the same room. I think they're all together. The First Lantern used his powers basically to either he's able to do the multitasking where he's able to divide up his energy amongst them, or he pulled them all together into one area using the supernatural powers that he has. You figure he's able to trap the Guardians. He had enough power to stop the Guardians, absorb back all that energy that was going into the Third Army, so he could very easily pull them all into one area. I think we're going to eventually, as the story plays out, we're going to see one giant room with all of them trapped up in these energy tendrils, and he's just sucking them dry like a vampire, trying to get the energy to make that first change that we saw him do with the Guardians and completely rewrite the universe how he thinks it should be.
Well, that's a really cool idea, Jim. I never even thought about it that way. It's interesting. You wonder if we know some things are going to change coming out of this arc. Is Jeff Johns and is that right? Are those writing teams going to actually spell it out, or are they going to leave it to the new creators, the new creative teams to come in and explain that stuff, and that allows them the freedom to go in a little bit more directions that they want to? It'll be interesting to see. Do they bookend it and we find out what's been changed, or does that unfold over time going forward?
Meaning they give Green Lantern a new continuity moving forward.
Right.
Interesting. A new old continuity where there'll be, bits of both.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, we find out along the way what's going on. I don't know. All of it's kind of exciting to me because I like that there's a storyline right now where we really don't know what's going to happen. Let's go. Seeing as we're already kind of starting to talk about New Guardians and we're kind of bleeding into it. Green Lantern New Guardians number 17. Tony Bedard is the writer. Aaron Cooter on art. Will Quintana on colors, Dave Sharp letterer, Cooter and Quintana cover, Kate Stewart associate editor, Will Moss editor, Matt Idelson group editor. I really want to apologize for any name butchery. Really cool book. I like, again, as I mentioned earlier, the character focus. For me, I read Kyle since issue 1, day 1, seeing Kyle. And to have an opportunity to journey back with Kyle and be faced with this opportunity, and I'm going to jump right to it, and we can talk further along the way of events that lead up to it, but I can't help but leap to this. This guy gives him an opportunity where Alex is alive. He gives Kyle the opportunity to choose, and then takes it away from him. But what would you do in that position? Like, you're given this opportunity to completely change your life, and it's the woman that you love. You have a chance for her to be back and alive and living again. No matter what that means for your relationship with her, together or not, whatever, she can be breathing and living again instead of in a refrigerator. I mean, to undo that, like, if you're taking everything that Kyle's went through and he's saying, I'm going to give all of it up, all of my history here, I'm going to give it up and I'm going to reboot to this point and just say she's going to live. And it changes everything for me. It means I'm more than likely not going to be a Green Lantern, not going to go down this route. I'm going to become be a starving artist, whatever, with what he's going to do at that point. But this is what I'm giving up at that moment. What do you think you would do for someone you love in that moment? Would you do that? Could you do that? Could you give up being the White Lantern, the Green Lantern, all this stuff that he's done? I mean, look at Kyle's accomplishments in his career. Could you give all of that up, all the lives he's saved, all the good that he's done, the sense of accomplishment, give that up for one life close to you? What would you do when faced with giving up everything that he's giving up there for the one life? Would you do it?
Gosh, I don't know if I could. It's interesting because it's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, he's trying to undo a wrong that was done to the person he loved that he brought onto her, which is one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is how many people died because he wasn't Green Lantern and wasn't a White Lantern. Mm-hmm. It's altruistic in one sense, but it's also selfish in the other. So it's interesting. I don't know what I would do.
Jim, what do you think you would do?
See, it's for me, and it'll sound a little cold, but I would choose the ring. And even knowing that
it sounds a little cold because you keep her in the fridge.
Come on. Yeah.
Hey, you said it, not me.
I'm saying cold in that I'd allow someone that I loved
to be stuffed into a fridge,
and not have the power to change that and choose not to. But it's
it sounds very cold.
I'm at least feeling guilty about the fact that I'm letting her die. You're sitting here laughing about
I'd save her. I'm going to put her by a heater. sorry. Go ahead.
When I look at this, and on one hand, I think it's part of my personal life that's driving it. I've never had this type of love or this type of level of remorse, with anybody that has been in my life. Mm-hmm. Any of my exes are actually probably better off without me in it, so I can't really associate with Kyle on this one. But on the serious, I look at that, and that's the kind of stuff that I judge, and I look at what he accomplished as Green Lantern, what he accomplishes as a White Lantern, and I would like to think that if I was in his shoes, I would sit there, look at Wolfram, and tell him, "Hey, you, buddy." And I'd go on the offensive again. I'd like to say I'd keep fighting and I'd keep attacking at him. But we saw how he wear down Guy. We saw how he wear down Kyle. And these are two very disciplined, very mentally strong individuals. You have to be a Green Lantern. And he's able to wear them down. This is, torture. This is torture to the extreme, because it's not just a physical torture. He's actually going into their mind and changing, altering history and hitting them with the turmoil of, nah, you failed here. Here's where all these people died. Here's where all this happens. So I completely get why Kyle takes the choice. And it's something that, even though I don't think I would, I really appreciate how they played it out and why Kyle did it. Because I don't think any less of him as a character, as a hero. I completely understand his path and his pain. But it's one of those things where I was like, man, I completely disagree with his choice, but I understand it and I liked it because it did fit Kyle. It fit who the person is.
Kyle and I, when we were talking about it over pizza from my fridge, we really thought you were wrong.
Many people will. I fully admit that.
No, you know what? It's funny, and you could take Alex out of it, and it doesn't have to be a former girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. In that case, it could be a friend. I think of friends of mine who have died young, people I know that have died young. You're given this moment where you're with, because you got to remember, he's facing this position. It's not like somebody just says, hey, you can bring that person back to life. He's thrust into a moment with this person to see what if. He's a part of what if. And to be faced with that reality and seeing this person again, to have a moment with this person again, and to see okay, she's alive, but we aren't together now because of the fact that she's alive, but I can show her and there's this chance for me to, kind of rebuild that love again. And then he has that moment where, because he's Kyle, I love the moment where the White Lantern ring kicks in.
Yeah.
And he's able to break through with what Volthoom's doing there. And I just really loved the way that all played out. I thought it was great to see Kyle kind of have a unique moment to him with everything we've seen him go through in his struggle to gain control of the emotional spectrum. I think it's very fitting that in that moment he does crack through Volthoom's trickery there, and I really loved how that played out.
Well, I thought kind of a funny moment when Kyle first sees Alex. What's the first thing he starts doing? He starts taking off his shirt. He starts getting ready to get down. That cracked me up, and I cheered and laughed out loud when I read that.
I didn't even notice that before.
See, and I thought he was scratching his back.
Okay.
It's interesting when you look at the flashback sequence where you're looking through Kyle's life. He doesn't have as many things in the background as Guy does, but he was an ugly baby. If you look at the picture of him in the diaper. And then there's a panel with him with his umbilical cord. You can see his stomach with an umbilical cord coming out.
Oh, I never noticed that. Wow.
I like when Volthoom goes after his parentage, and starts sitting here saying, I'm going to give you this relationship with Dad that you always wanted. And now it's you and Dad having a business, and just how tough that would be for Kyle to have to, face that moment and have these conversations, going after the corrupt police and, finding out that that's not the best of maneuvers. I thought it was really great.
I thought it was funny to see Volthoom stick his head down and interact with him.
And Kyle even kind of cocks his head over as well, and it's a physical comedic moment that I don't know if it was intended to be comedic, but I was laughing throughout this issue. Probably, and this issue has some serious tug at the heartstring, especially at the ending there. I get these moments where I'm kind of cracking up and laughing, and then I think it added to the impact and just the fact that I was laughing and enjoying so much, then you get those moments of just that pure despair at the end. And you see this Voltham just dancing around, just draining him dry of his energy because of that despair. It was a wonderful emotional roller coaster ride.
I like seeing what happened with Guy. That whole sequence with Guy Gardner where, because, Jordan and all them weren't around. Guy, you see him with the pad. Obviously, it looks like he lost an eye or something like that. And just the resentment for Kyle. And, it's funny. Imagine in that moment, this guy has toyed with bringing back his girlfriend. Now, all of a sudden, he's changed his whole childhood set of memories. Then he's going toe-to-toe with, Guy Gardner, who resents him for the way things have gone wrong. To have all of that yanked away, a close friend, is now in your face and had enough with you. And, you seemingly lost your girlfriend again. And to then be faced with Volthum at this point, he's taken him through such an emotional roller coaster. I'm giving you back, Dad, but I'm making that horrible. And I'm making it a very depressing life that you're living. I put you back with Guy, but your life with Guy is like an apocalyptic version of what you were used to in your relationship with Guy. Just amazing use of small little tethers being ripped away. But, yeah, guess what? Despair is what I want most, so you're not getting your gal back. Oh, wow.
I think as much as this is kind of a cosmic story, I think this is one of the most personal stories for all these characters that we've seen in Jeff John's entire run.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of the enjoyment that I'm getting from this is we're getting such a very human reaction. We're getting that, sheer, pure emotional reaction and dealings. And as much as crazy as it is to have a ring that you can, do anything with based on sheer willpower, these type of stories give you that realistic human touch to it that makes you understand these characters. Kyle has faced some seriously crazy stuff throughout this issue, but in the end there, when you see his despair, when you see the fact that Volthum dangled everything he wanted in front of him, gave him this great, perfect utopia, and Kyle's reaching for it, but I thought I was going to get this. No, you don't. Sorry, buddy. Yeah, I'm going to do the old Charlie Brown pull the football away from you. Yeah, you think you're going to get it? Not today. It was just that, and I think, as I said before, part of it was, for me, the power of this page was the fact that I was laughing so much throughout this issue, leading up to this great moment of despair. This was one of those really cool issues that second and third read through, I really, really enjoyed this, and I hate to say I enjoyed his pain, but I really did. It really added to the story, and I feel bad saying this because Kyle's a great guy, but man, that was cool.
That's one of the funny things about this whole book and seeing the way that it goes is you get to see a direction for the character of Kyle. I honestly think he's somebody that they've done an amazing job with in the New 52 of capturing what I think worked with Kyle while compressing his origin in a way that it fits into a much faster arc for Hal and John Stewart and Guy and Kilowog and all those characters than was in the previous continuity. It's because you're kind of simplifying and making them younger. I really liked how that all played out. I thought that was really, really cool. This can we talk a little bit about that Threshold book?
Oh, sure.
Now, this is an interesting series. It was one that came from out of nowhere. And I've really been kind of hoping that when books like Rebels got canceled, one of the things I liked about Rebels is it kind of explored pockets of the galaxy that we don't normally get to see. Threshold's kind of doing that, where we get to see a Lantern, who's kind of little off the radar and got his own little thing going on in this dark, it's really like Hunger Games set in the Green Lantern universe, which I guess for lack of a, or a Running Man or, something
I was
like
going
that.
Running Man more.
But I mean, it's that type. Did you see Hunger Games?
I've heard about it. I've never actually seen it or read it.
The premise is very similar. It's that type of thing. It's a game that people are thrust into, just like Running Man. So the comparisons are pretty spot on with either or. But it's the game show concept where these people are thrust into this kind of world. If I remember, is it Lady Styx that it revolves around? Am I right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Who's a character that's in there? What do you guys think of this book? Because this came out of an annual and then spun into a series. And I've been enjoying it so far. I was kind of tentative. I didn't know, what am I going to think of it? I like it having a backup feature and all that. Where are you guys at with it?
It's interesting that Keith Giffen said in an interview that it really wasn't his idea to make Jediah Call a former Green Lantern. So I've been kind of looking at the book as it's kind of an offshoot. It's almost like a cousin of the Green Lantern family books. It's not even solicited with the Green Lantern family, but it does. I'm glad you mentioned the Rebel thing because it really gives me that Rebels vibe, and I've kind of missed that. So I've been almost looking at it as, even though he's a former Green Lantern, I've been looking at it as its own thing. Mm-hmm. And I've really been enjoying it because it's something different. It's a part of the DC cosmic universe that's kind of been left dangling out there. So it's neat to see it picked up on. And I'm really enjoying the Larfleeze backup. It'll be neat to see what happens when that gets expanded into a full book. Because I think Keith Giffen has an interesting voice in it for the character. But I've been enjoying it. It's kind of interesting. There are characters that I don't – most of these characters are new in the Hunted, but – for me at least, but I'm enjoying just a different take. It's a different flavor of the sci-fi piece, and it's like you said, the Running Man piece thrown into the Green Lantern universe kind of thing. So I'm really kind of liking it.
And I like when you see that Call has to kind of get down and dirty and get with the civilian population and try to make contacts, and you're in a world where you don't know which contacts to trust. You come and encounter people who have the same potential motivations than you do, needs that you do, but you're bartering and trading and, doing favors and things like that, all to keep moving forward and to keep, accomplishing things. But also it's a choice of when to be visible and when to stay under the radar, especially when you've got a character like from the Reach, like Blue Beetle, not knowing who this guy is, but he's a Reach a being.
He's a Reach warrior.
Yeah, Reach warrior showing up there, and that would be something he hunts Green Lanterns.
Yeah, this was a really cool thing for me that, it flew under the radar. I had no idea what was going on, and I initially ordered, this was a title that I initially ordered because of the show. When they do new stuff like this, I always say, let me just order it. Yeah, I knew absolutely nothing about it, but I figured maybe along the ways we would talk about it. And first issue, read the annual, then read the first issue, and I'm like, this is actually kind of neat. By the second issue, I'm locked, stocked, and hooked on this title to the point where I'm like, this is a keeper for me, and this is something that I hope sticks around for a while just because of the possibilities. One, we're getting Jaime still being told, but two, these other characters, this universe, this world. This is, it's that cosmic story. You throw out Rebels. I completely agree with the assessment, completely, see that. I want this to continue. I want this planet to go on. I think there's so much more they could do with this side of it that, it's, it's a cool commentary on people as well, on Earth. Because you think about it, this whole world is a giant enemies of the state. Lady Styx are thrown in and they're hunted by everybody. You're put out there, you're given, a day's notice or a couple days' notice where you can actually run and hide, and then it's open season. Whoever kills the person gets reward. So every day, normal person walking on the street sees you, they can put a bullet in you, or they could blast you, or do something, and then they can get a prize. Or some people, they're not exactly into that, but they enjoy watching it, so they just stay out of the way. And it's a cool commentary on society if you think about it, because if this was going on in present day, some people would be hunters, some would be spectators, and there'd be the few who would say, "Oh, this is morally wrong." But you get those people saying this is morally wrong. Next thing you know, they're now targets. So it's people are going to start keeping their mouths shut and just let it happen and just stay out of the way. And it's birth of resistance cells, government uprisings. There's so many different things they could do within this title that the possibilities have me excited for it.
I'm sorry, I was busy reading the Easy Reader in the beginning. See bad thing. See the bad thing run. See bad thing. Oh, see run bad thing run. The bad thing is being hunted. Being hunted is for bad things. Are you a bad thing? I mean, this is like a children's storybook here? I mean, really, really great stuff when they do that. I really enjoy the whole concept. Now, wasn't Giffen and Rogers, weren't they the ones that created Blue Beetle, this version of Blue Beetle? Or weren't they the ones that kicked off that initial series, Jim?
Yeah.
So it's Keith Giffen getting a chance to work again with Jaime, in this particular series, which is kind of neat for him to have a chance to revisit the character this much later in the New 52. What do you think of Jaime being here with the way his series ended now being thrust into this book? Do you like this spot for him and what they're doing with him?
Well, I'm glad that they're getting rid, they got rid of his title. I'm glad he's still around. And the fact that he's here leads me to believe that maybe Jaime is going to make it back to Earth. Maybe we'll continue to see more of Jaime. This isn't the end of the character. This is just another evolution, another direction of the character. So I'm glad that he's not completely gone. And this was one of those really cool flow-throughs where it went from the Blue Beetle story to here, and you saw everything play out. And it just, it was, it's just like this. This is, for me, a continuation of the Blue Beetle title. And it's not, obviously, but I like seeing it, and I want to see where Jaime goes further and where all this plays out eventually. This is, again, I'm very excited for this universe. I'm cool to see where this goes. I'm happy Jaime's there. I'm hoping that he eventually gets back to Earth, but I want to see him on this planet do some good because that's the kind of guy he is. And just, there's a lot that they can do with this.
I kind of hope if Larfleeze is going to be pulled out into his own series, they keep the book at the same size it is now and give Jaime a backup feature once he's done with the Hunted storyline.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I would love that.
I kind of hope he becomes the Orange Lantern, the Orange Beetle. And Larfleeze owns him. He's mine! Mine! That's a whole different kind of backup feature. No, I actually agree with the idea. I'd love to see him have a backup feature in this book because I think it's a good fit for him to be in that. He's a character who it's funny how this character I think is very unique in his character development, and the storyline, and the background, and I wish he could somehow get an attach rate. I think he's a character that, and I've said this before with him, I think marketed right and put into like gaming and digital and stuff like that, I think he's a character that could appeal to. I want to play the Blue Beetle video game. I think this character would be very fun, with the way that symbiotic relationship works with the beetle in his back and bursting out of your back and stuff like that, and being able to play that in a gaming environment. I think he's a character, and the reason why I use that as an example, I think he would look cool to the gaming crowd. I think that's a crowd that would follow him to a comic book tie-in. And when I say comic book tie-in, his regular book that's set in the New 52, or, I think that's a character that would benefit from that crowd. I just see that being a character as a gamer myself and enjoying video games. I just see him being visually somebody that you could see in a third-person action game.
Well, yeah, and you could see where you could get different power ups and level the character up and add different weapons and different ways to upgrade the character.
Agreed. And I think that would be an interesting avenue for this character to then his title to be available digitally. Kind of like a lot of I would love to see what the sales numbers are for like the Arkham City tie-ins and this new Injustice set of tie-ins that are coming on, the ones that tie into DC-related video games, how those books do, and if a Blue Beetle book tying in to a game like that would do that. I think that he would, I've played games like God of War and stuff like that before, and I see that game environment where obviously you would change the backgrounds and, the whole premise, but if you use that type of an engine with the Blue Beetle, I just think he would be an immensely cool character to play with in that type of expansive world where you're going through the cosmos, but then also having it set on Earth and having to deal with threats on Earth in an open world style game. I just think he would be a very interesting character to play as that could appeal to a very large crowd, because I think his visual look is really cool. I think the character in the story is very identifiable to the video gaming crowd, where I think they would, he would be fun to play. There would be something cool about him. You can give him all kinds of really neat one-liners that would fit into that world, and he would be an interesting character that I think could pull people in from that environment to comics. I'm just surprised he hasn't been used in that fashion, because I just think that he looks like he's a video game character.
Yeah.
He really does.
And you just think about the different levels of powers and different types of beetles we've seen in the various incarnations that is Blue Beetle. A person could really, more of a stealth type of beetle. Do you want more of an armored type of beetle? Do you want them going hand to hand, so it'll be focusing on the big blades, or are you more of a blaster, so it'd be the blasters and missiles and whatnot and the range effects? What kind of character, what kind of beetle are you? They could really do that, but he is, outside of comic book readers, people don't know who the Blue Beetle is. They don't know anything about him, and even he's been, prominent in the cartoons and the various, with Young Justice, they're using him a lot, and just there's all these other, attempts to get people to know the character. I don't think the everyday person knows who Blue Beetle is. If you walked up to a non-comic book, non-cartoon reader, they would have no idea who Blue Beetle is or know any of the cool stuff about him. But you ask them who Superman is, they'll know about Superman. They'll know about his powers. They'll even know about Kryptonite, because there's just a common level and common knowledge of these different characters, and he's not one of them. And I don't know how you get people to know about him. I don't know how do we get the everyday population to know about the coolness of this character?
A video game. There's new characters created in a visually stunning video game all the time. Kratos. I use the God of War example. This is a character who anybody who owns a PlayStation system is aware of who Kratos is. Even if they haven't played God of War, it's a character, even if they don't know the name Kratos, if you see him, people typically know he's from the game God of War. If you look on Microsoft's, Xbox, Halo, the Master Chief, these are characters that, they jump out and they have an identifiable nature to them because they've been developed in a really cool video game that's just visually stunning. The Grand Theft Auto series, never played it before, you've heard of it. But that started from scratch, at some point. So that's why I think there's characters that I think have been created at DC, and I think it's one of the things they need to use, now that they've done this whole everything's under the Warner Brothers banner. You've got Warner as a studio having their own video game. They've bought Midway. They've bought all these companies to develop their own games. They should be looking at some of their unique DC properties and not always going to the big-name characters. Going to ones and saying, wow, this is a character that maybe in comics hasn't had the attach rate that they thought they were going to, but maybe this character would really do better in this environment. Maybe this is a character that would stand out in this environment. I think the Blue Beetle is one of those that really, I think, would do better there. Would maybe generate a different sort of crowd looking at him as a character. I do. I just think he's made to be that kind of character. And that's how you make him more of a household name from a very different avenue. But use what works in the comics, because I think you've got a potential horror story. You show this guy on television changing the Blue Beetle with that scare bursting out of his back and stuff like that, people are going to want to play that game, or at least look at the demo. Because it's
interesting because Blue Beetle's kind of like Firestorm. The potential that Firestorm had back when Firestorm first got popular. It was like all of a sudden, he was everywhere. And you see the same potential in Jaime. And yeah, you'd love to see the attach rate be there and for him to become that next big thing.
And there's something about him. I really like the character. I want to see it happen. And I just think, visually that armor suit, I think, is the key. It's either him or Captain Carrot. One of these two have got to break out.
Hey, speaking of Captain Carrot, now, I know basically vagueness of what Captain Carrot was. I never really read Captain Carrot. So for them to reintroduce the character this way, make him an alien on this planet, I have absolutely no emotional or reaction whatnot to it. What about you? Or is there any word that you're hearing about? Are people upset what they've done to Captain Carrot and Pig Iron?
I haven't heard anything, and actually, I had no exposure to those characters before, so I was aware of them, so I kind of recognized at least the Carrot name, but I haven't heard anything one way or the other.
I guess I kind of took it as the traditional Captain Carrot and the Zoo Crew still exist in the New 52 in the multiverse. I mean, their world's still there, so I'm completely fine when you've got a New 52, like, this New 52 version of them is perfectly fine for me because you can still have them elsewhere. Kind of like, how we see certain characters on Earth 2 in that series popping up that are very different than the New 52 versions. So I'm assuming, with Morrison doing Multiversity and there's going to be, more of the multiverse introduced gradually, I guess I would just take it that it's possible. I'm not saying it's a definite because we don't really know what the new, the multiverse looks like here. But boy, to me, those traditional Zoo Crew characters really belong on their own world. It would be a little strange for them to pop up in the New 52.
Yeah, and I kind of liked it personally, especially because Carrot, they did K''ROT, so it wasn't even the traditional Carrot, it was K-Rot. So I was like, it's kind of neat how they did that. And for me, I thought this was, again, another cool usage of this world.
That's his rapper name.
Oh,
I'm K-Rot.
And this guy's a little bit snarky. A little bit, completely, I love the fact that he goes, hey, I'm just going to apologize up front for sicking this rabid, Reach Warrior after you. Hey, Green Lantern over here. Bye.
Come on, you mental midget. It's your favorite. What a great line. Hey, better you than me. In my defense, I did apologize. Great stuff. That's Giffen writing. Really knowing when to bring in the humor element without making it too slapstick. I think Giffen obviously with Ambush Bug is able to do more slapstick, but I think it really shows the restraint of a writer to know when to use humor, when not to. I love humor in comics. And I think when you're doing a story like this, it reads like a great action movie. What do we love about action movies? One-liners, those moments where you're just kind of like, did he just say that? But yet you still feel the intensity of the moment, and you've got that here. It's all the more interesting when the character that's our good guy is the one they're running from. Blue Beetle is traditionally our good guy, but it doesn't always work out so well in this.
No, the backup with Keith Giffen's, the Larfleeze backup, I was really glad they're doing this. One, especially since they announced that Giffen's going to be taking over the Larfleeze comic. So we're getting an idea of how he's writing the character. Because he's somebody that, if you had asked me a couple months ago, would I want anybody other than Jeff Johns writing a monthly, I would have said no. But seeing him use the character, seeing him in charge of the character, has kind of let me go, okay, yeah, this should be really cool, and I'm really excited for the ongoing monthly of Larfleeze.
I think, for me, Ambush Bug put my confidence in him on Larfleeze. And I'm not disputing what you're saying. I think, because I read more Ambush Bug than you did. I mean, I'm not saying that there was like 84 years of Ambush Bug, but, I read all of the Ambush Bug stuff, including the newer series. You look at Larfleeze, it seems like the guy who could write Ambush Bug would be able to hit a home run. With Larfleeze. It's obviously, I'm not saying that they're the same character, but you can really do some wacky, zany things with Larfleeze that you could do with an Ambush Bug.
And it's funny because, if just based on name, I was, would have been trusting of him. But it is, he's a character that there is a wacky level to him. But if you go too far on the wacky side, I think you lose something that is, that is neat about him. There's more to Larfleeze than just a mine, fine. There is that, just that little bit of touch, of humanity buried underneath all of that. There is just that little bit of
no charge.
Say again?
There's a little bit of no charge.
Yeah. In him, and you need to have that good balance. You need to have those moments, and throughout this, you get some cool Larfleeze moments where he's going full on blast, and you get those little bits of, especially like at the end when he realizes his ring's gonna run out of juice soon, and he kind of has that oh crud look on his face, and it's that moment of Larfleeze realizing, okay, I may stop being omnipotent, I need to get that back now. And I liked how that played out throughout this whole issue.
The addition of the butler was such a great touch because Larfleeze needs someone to play off of.
Yeah.
And it was the perfect. He's almost like an alien Alfred in his dryness, how he deals with the humor.
Well, they had to do something because they got rid of his guardian. So yeah. I'm glad they added something else in there because it's, Larfleeze does need someone to play off of. And you can just see this guy going, oh, dear God, how did I get in this? How did my life go so horribly wrong that this is my existence?
What are your wishes? What would you like to know about Larfleeze? Like with Larfleeze getting his own series. I think, it was interesting when they did a Red Lantern series, you get this in-depth exploration into the world of the Red Lanterns. Now we're going to be getting a direct exploration of Larfleeze. What do you want to know?
I really want to know about his family and what his real name is, because Larfleeze isn't even his real name. What is his origin? How did he become Agent Orange? That's really what I want to know.
Yeah, I'll completely agree on those sentiments, and I think everybody wants to know his oath, which last time we talked, I was like, I really want to know the oath. Now I'm kind of like, I hope they keep just teasing it to us. Just give us a couple of lines of it. Don't give us the full thing. Just keep teasing it. Just keep drawing this thing out. Part of me is kind of enjoying the mystery behind the Larfleeze oath. And I would do like a panel, a thing where he's like whispering the oath so you can't see it, but have it go like 3 or 4 pages of him just huddled over his ring whispering the oath, knowing so that this thing is this massively long, ridiculous oath, and we don't know all of it yet, and just like the last a word here, a bit there.
It's funny. I actually love one of the things you always want to know is the oath when it comes to Larfleeze. There's so much about the character that I want to know, though, and want to see his interaction with others. I think what's really been great as the character's been explored further and further is how much more to him there is than what we see on the surface. That there really is some scarring and some emotional backstory to the character that makes him interesting. I want to see where he goes. I think I'm glad they're really launching this as a book because I think he's going to be something very unique. I think if you're going to launch another title in the Green Lantern universe, you got to really look at what sets this aside. Myron made a great point about Threshold. How does it work? Because you can read it and enjoy it, and it's not, yes, there's a Green Lantern in it, but it really reads, I think it does read a lot more like a Rebels, which, that 110% a great compliment to the book. Because I thought the strength of Rebels is it didn't read like any other book in the DC universe. And I think Larfleeze, having his own title, especially seeing this backup, is going to read like a title that's not like any other in the DC universe. I think that's really important nowadays when you're fighting in a market for an attach rate. So that kind of stuff, really is drastically important. Obviously, being tied to the Green Lantern books is going to be a feather in your cap to help you get people to initially try your book. But if you want to keep them going, you got to make that book unique, interesting, and well worth the ride. And I think Larfleeze is going to be one of those books. You can't go wrong with Keith Giffen.
Yeah, and he is the character that within the Green universe, everybody wants more Larfleeze. And it's just something that the character, when they first introduced this crazy Muppet, that everyone's like, what the heck is this thing? What's going on here? You immediately wanted more. And so I'm definitely, I was 100% in on this now. I'm very excited to get more of this and see where this goes. And it's, with any of the other titles, you kind of have a basic idea. What's going to happen. Bad guys are going to attack. Good guys are going to fight them. We're going to get some character development, some personal growth. We're going to get maybe some human stories of them outside of the mask. what kind of stories do you get from Larfleeze? Because he doesn't have that. He doesn't have the normal story. Where is Larfleeze going to go? And it's that mystery that kind of has me looking forward to it and has me excited.
Guys, anything else you want to say about Threshold? All right. that was kind of a yes or no question. It was, instead I got.
I was giving Myron the chance to say no, I'm okay, and he was giving me the chance to say no, I'm okay. So it was just dead
air. Clear.
And that's good podcasting.
That's gold, baby. That's gold.
I thought Larfleeze took both of you. Where'd they go? They're Orange Lanterns now. I don't know. They're over there with it.
Actually, we are part of the Third Army now. We have no mouth.
But you have wonderful eyes. Anything you want to say about the Green Lantern books in general, as we're kind of in this place? What do you want to see from the first Lantern story? Where would you like this to go? What do you want to know that you don't know? Like, how do you want them to tie this up in a nice bow? Because this is it. This is the coup de grace for Johns and crew. So where do you want this to go?
What I'm really the most fascinated in, it's going to sound really bizarre, I'm sure, but I'm more interested in the origins of the Corps and how the Guardians got from point A to point B. We've seen them wearing the robes with the White Lantern logo on them. I'm assuming at that point they were the monks of light that were referenced a couple times. How they went from there to being the Guardians that we've come to know, and the origins of the Corps, and how did they develop the Corps? That whole little bit of history to me is the nugget and the kernel that I'm really looking for, and I'm not sure we're going to get it. I'm really hoping we are, because to me that's a missing piece. But I'm looking forward to that more than anything else, I think.
Jim?
Oh God, yeah, and there's a lot of questions I have about Guardians, and I want to see where it goes through. I'm wondering. I really want to know if this guy's good or bad. What is his deal? Is he going to be just the misunderstood villain who is tortured for millennia, who now has his freedom, or is he going to be the sadistic person who's been torturing these characters that we know to get power? Or is it just, what is his end game? What is his ultimate result? Does he just want to go home? Does he just want to be free? Does he just want to live in the universe, or does he want to be the master of the universe and manipulate everything? I don't completely know him yet. You get glimpses that he's an evil SOB, and you want the Green Lanterns to beat him up, but there's always going to be that little just hesitation where I'm like, maybe he is misunderstood. Maybe he's a victim who's just trying to get for his own freedom, trying to get released. It's what is going to happen? Where is it going to happen? Why is it going to happen? These are the excitement of the story. And I don't know yet. I don't know how they're going to do it. And this is a powerful mega being that can just brush aside their powers without even thinking about it. So how do you fight somebody that powerful? Where's his weakness? That's what I want to see. Where is his weakness?
Yeah. That's an interesting point. I'm very curious to see if it is Hal.
Yeah, I love that, by the way. I think I'm rooting and hoping that that's the case, because that would be absolutely wonderful if this is the other version of Hal, and it would explain all their resentment and hatred towards Hal, and just it kind of, again, it's another piece to the puzzle, another sign of the greater story and backlog and history that is the Guardians and the Green Lantern universe. The more you know, the more mysteries are out there.
What if it's not just Hal? Like, what if it's Hal and Sinestro?
What, a merging of the two's body?
I'm saying, what if this was their way out of their current predicament?
If they became, that'd be cool. If this is how they get out, by becoming Volthram and coming through the portal, and that's why you see a ring, and that'd be neat.
I'm not saying, I'm really just, cool. And believe me, I'm throwing this off the top of my head right now, so there's no basis in any form of evidence to state this. I'm just kind of throwing out ideas because I think it's interesting. I think that panel that Myron references, where you see him looking at Hal, is pretty pivotal. As far as, I think that's a really interesting clue, if it is a clue, if we find out he's somebody else.
Yeah.
Saint Walker. he's Tom.
He's just Tom. Hey, I'm Tom V.
No, there is a Tom. But
Oh, there is?
yeah.
Tom Kelmaku.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were just talking to some guy named Tom.
No. Well, I was talking about a guy named Tom from the Green Lantern universe, but it could be just any guy named Tom. But I don't know. It's an interesting story arc. I love that this feels like, kind of a coup de grace to the whole thing, a coming together of it. I want to see, like Myron said, I'd love to know as much of the history as I can. But I'd also love them to leave it... I see them leaving it in a classy way, tied up in a nice, neat bow, but leaving it open for the next creators to take over and really doing something as spectacular with it. I see this being a creative team that's going to end this with class and leave us as the readers wanting more, which ultimately is a place, if you're going to end a book with class, and you're choosing to end a run. There's a huge difference between being yanked from a book and being able to choose to end your run. I see these guys with having the opportunity they have to really wrap up and put a nice exclamation point on the end, leaving these books in a way where we as the readers are satisfied, enjoying and embracing what they did, but also anticipating where it's going to go now. And that is a balance that I think a few successful creative teams are able to do. But when they do, wow. And I think we're going to get one of those wows. And that's the kind of confidence I have in these people, is that I think they're going to deliver that kind of an ending to this run in a way that we're going to be excited for the new people, because they're going to leave us in that place, which is a hard thing to do, but I see it. I see them doing it.
Hey, oh, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be the end of an era, but, as hard as it is to see them go, it has to end sometime, and I think they're going to end on a high note, and I think they're going to leave all the toys on the shelf for the next set of creators to come in and leave their own mark on the characters.
What would you, now that we can actually talk about new creative teams coming on, because before... it was funny, last time you were on, I was really very focused so much on the Jeff Johns stuff that I didn't realize in our discussion that all the books were getting new people. What do you guys hope for with the new creative teams? Like, just kind of in general. Do you want it to be a continuation of everything you've seen here? Would you like the First Lantern to be a starting point? Like, would you like some stuff to be played with and altered because of the First Lantern? Or do you want it to be the continuity if I'm making sense?
I to be honest, would love for the continuity not to be changed too much, just because I'm so familiar with it. Mm-hmm. I guess in terms of what I hope they do, my only concern I've got in listening to some of the interviews that I've seen them do so far is they're creating a lot of new characters, and I don't want to see some of the characters like Izamat Cole and Aricia and some of the other characters who have become fan favorites. I don't want to see them go into the background too far to make room for new characters. But overall, I just want some really good stories to star characters that I love. And that's really all I'm looking for. And whether they weave them together into some big tapestry or they become 4 books that are very connected very loosely, it doesn't matter to me. I think I'm most interested to see where Red Lanterns is going to go, because in listening to Joshua Fialkov's comments, he's going to be tying that more closely back into the Green Lantern universe, and he's writing 2 of the 5 books. So I kind of see him having the ability to do a lot of playing around between the 2 sets of books he's doing. I think that's going to be very interesting. I think all the creative teams have a lot of potential. Other than Keith Giffen, I really have no familiarity with any of them. So I'm walking into this eyes wide open and ready to see what they're going to do, and embracing them and giving them every opportunity to tell their stories. My only concern is abandoning too much of the past and too much of what's been built up.
Yeah, I kind of want to see this continuation of where we're currently at. I don't want too much of a manipulation of the current continuity. I'd rather, they're getting this great groundwork, so let's continue the story from where we're at. I always like to seeing aftermaths, and I would love to see them come in and they handle like the aftermath of the First Lantern, and that leads into where their direction they want the stories to go, they want the characters to go. That's where they can introduce new characters as they're dealing with this aftermath of the First Lantern and seeing the characters' interactions. I found it interesting that the one image I saw, I don't know if it's a preview image or if it's just an image they're throwing out there, but they still showed Kyle as a White Lantern. I personally hope he stays as the White Lantern and he continues, and that's how they go with him within the new unit with the new Guardians, is him as the White Lantern, and maybe he'll do some green, maybe he'll throw out some red and blue and etc. throughout all the different color spectrums when he needs it. I think that would be a nice little kind of take on the character, and a good way for a new creator to spotlight, to do something different with that character, but not throw out what has happened in the past.
I think we need to get the burnt sienna lantern finally.
The burnt sienna? What's the emotion for burnt sienna?
I don't know. It's, confused.
Let's see. Their oath would be. Let's see here. I think it's something light and it's something good and oh wow. Hold on. I know it. I'm thinking here.
It lies heavily on their cousins, the chartreuse lanterns, the color of puzzlement, or discomfort. Or chartreuse, I don't know how to feel about it. You know what? Honestly, the emotional spectrum, I think, has been one of the strengths of this. It was funny when they originally introduced the emotional spectrum into this current run. I thought it was going to be shorter lived than it was. I don't know why. I thought that was going to be like this story arc, and we were going to have the battle of, the Color Corps, and then they were going to go back to just being the Green Lantern Corps. They were going to have to win out against the other Corps, if that makes sense. Not knowing how far they were going to go with the concept of emotion and how those powers, the way that they've introduced it, it's almost you can't. How would you get rid of it now? There's always a way. Even if they destroy a Corps, there would be a way for it to be resurrected now because of the mythos they put into place, which I don't know if did you guys see that being something that we'd still be talking about this much later, that these Corps would still be present and viable and have as big of an impact? Because you guys may have seen it reaching farther than I did. I thought it was going to be a War of the Lanterns and that was going to be it.
I'm kind of like you, Sean. I thought initially when Jeff Johns talked about the War of Light and all this, that, and the other thing, I figured in the end, after the War of Light, they wouldn't be coexisting. And maybe we might have, obviously, maybe the Sinestro Corps. But I didn't expect it to go where it's gone. And I'm glad that I was wrong in what I was thinking, because I think it adds so much to the Green Lantern universe. That there's so much, and it makes so much sense. I remember when Jeff Johns first promoted the whole idea of the emotional spectrum, I literally slapped myself in the head and was like, oh my God, why didn't anybody think of this before? I think it's just such a logical extension of the Green Lantern mythology that I think it's here to stay.
Jim?
Yeah, when it was first discussed, I thought it was going to be short-lived, but I'll tell you, once I started reading this stuff, I knew this was going to be around for a while. Or at least I hoped it was going to be around for a while, because just the concept behind it. And I'm even remembering back, there was a couple New York Comic Cons ago when Blackest Night was first coming out, when they were first teasing everything about the Black Lanterns and this and that, and someone threw out a question about a White Lantern. And Jeff Johns kind of danced around the subject, and he did his little soft shoe, and I was like, everyone's like, oh my God, and I was thinking the White Lantern was going to be around for Blackest Night and this and that. Now we're seeing who the White Lantern is and how he went through to get it, and think of how many years ago that wasn't. My guess is he probably knew it was going to be Kyle the whole time, that he knew Kyle was eventually going to get the full power, get control of the spectrum, because that fits for Kyle, that fits for his character and his personality. And there's so much more that they could do on this stuff with these characters that you can't get rid of these colors. And even though the blue is pretty much destroyed, there's always hope in the universe. And I'd like to see the blue come back. I'd like, all of the colors to have their own core built up to a point where there's some pretty good interactions and some pretty neat dealings, because it adds to this universe. This is such a solid part of it that, to just throw it out, I think would be a mistake.
We actually have over on our site, we were talking during our podcast one time about different colors, and we mentioned seafoam is a color, and we attached anxiety to it. And one of our listeners designed the logo for the Seafoam Lantern Corps and made T-shirts and sent them to us. And we actually ended up writing an oath for it. And it was a blast, and I'd love to see them maybe continue on. And maybe there's some other emotions out there we're not aware of.
Myron, actually, speaking of your site right now, I didn't get a chance to introduce you at the beginning because we just kind of jumped in like we often do. We had our introductions to each other at the beginning where we were just kind of chatting, and then we just jumped in. But Myron, can you please tell everyone about the blog and podcast of OA? I know we talked about it last episode, but maybe if somebody's jumping on board because of the new issues and they didn't get to hear about it last episode, tell them all about it and why they should be checking it out.
Well, the blog of OA I started a few years ago, and actually it was an offshoot of my love for this podcast and wanting to do more and wanting to be a good ambassador for the Green Lantern mythology, much like I look at this podcast, I look at Raging Bullets as being the ambassador for DC Comics, that you're such a good ambassador for the hobby. And so I started the blog of OA up on my own and did some things for a while, just writing about things and reviews and news with the movie coming out. And then about almost 2 years ago, we started the podcast of OA as an extension of that, and my co-host, Bill Giancoli, someone I work with, he said, "Hey, what do you think about doing a podcast of our own?" And so we jumped on it then, and we've been going strong since then. But the URL is www.blogofoa.com, and basically it's a clearinghouse for all kinds of news and information about the Green Lantern universe as well as reviews.
We used to be on his radio station.
Yeah, get your geek on radio, yeah.
That was really cool. I always thought it was just a neat concept. Well, Myron, I want to thank you as always. It's one of the great things when we have you on. We're pretty much so set to have a 2-episode discussion out of it. It just winds up working that way because the Green Lantern is such an epic universe, and it's fun to really explore it this way and really kind of tackle these big arcs as a group and to kind of get different insight. And your insight and history I'm endlessly fascinated with, things like you'll throw out about Volthoom. And it's not a character who I knew that he was a character they went to from the past. I didn't know anything about him, though. So it was great to have your insight into that character. And sometimes you'll throw out speculation, like the Hal speculation you threw out. So it's a genuine pleasure, as it's always been, to have you on the show, and definitely we've got to do it again. Definitely.
I love any chance to visit with you guys again.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
I just want to quickly shout out Juan Castro. He's going to be on our episode next week, but he has a special running right now on original art. And if you go to his website, which is linked into our show notes, you can get those deals. So please make sure to check into our show note links and check out Juan's website in preparation for next week's episode. I want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. That will be back next episode. We have lots of voicemails to get to. We're going to be sharing those. Please feel free to call in with your thoughts on everything DC Comics. Also want to remind you to check out RagingBullets.com. We have links to our show sponsors from our show notes. We have various links to various podcasts, blogs, things like that. And if we don't have your blog posted or your podcast posted, please let us know. Email me at ragingbullets@gmail.com, and I'm always willing to post things up. I love cross-promotion, so if I'm missing something, please let me know and let me correct that. On our website, though, we have all kinds of information about the show that I'm constantly updating. We have links to our amazing Facebook group, Twitter, Google+. Remember that we do have a great Facebook group, and it's an amazing community of people who love to share their opinions about comics. We get in some lively debates at times, which I think are fantastic. It's great to be able to have an open forum where we can talk about the things that interest us as fans. So please make sure to sign up and be a part of that amazing group. And I want to thank everyone that's a part of the group because I really feel like it's a safe zone to get your ideas out there and share them. Whether we all agree or disagree on those ideas, it's irrelevant. It's great to be able to have great comic book conversation. And please feel free to post your podcast, blogs, everything on that site because I love, again, the cross-promotion. Speaking of our show website, RagingBullets.com, I want to shout something out real quick that I haven't done in a while. We used to have on there some listeners who would post regular articles that they wanted to blog and they wanted to be associated with a website. And if anybody's interested in that, that's always an open option. I'm always willing to set up an account for any of our listeners where you can do your own posting of a particular blog or idea on something comic related that you would like to, if you've got this bug that you want to start writing a column or a blog or something, please consider that open option. Contact me at ragingbullets@gmail.com and I'd be happy to talk to you about it if you're interested at all. Also, recently, I know on our Facebook group, people were talking about posting fan fiction. And if that's that's something that people have interested in and they want to do, I would certainly be open to hosting something like that on the website if people want to do that. So if you have any ideas and things that you would like to post on the website and you want to be a part of it, I've always looked at the website as being not only a news source of what's going on with our podcast, but hopefully a community access portal. So if anybody wants to post things on the website, please feel free to let me know, and I would love to facilitate that on some level. Once again, our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, they're offering a DC Kids bundle. Try all of the DC Kids books at 50% off. These are the 3 books: Batman Little Gotham, Green Lantern the Animated Series, Scooby-Doo Where Are You? Regularly $8.97, 50% off only $4.48 if you pre-order them from that great website. They are also offering, once again, a 50% off deal on all DC trades and hardcovers. They are a Comixology and iVerse Diamond Digital partner. All of your purchases give you 5% credit towards your DCB service order. So it's a great way, even though you're spending money on these comics, it's giving you part of that. You're building up a credit towards being able to buy paper books that you're really interested in. So please consider linking those accounts, and please go to our website and click on the links that are in our show notes and let our show sponsor know that you're hearing about them from our show. Over at InStockTrades.com, The Shade. This one is a personal soft spot for me. I'm a big fan of the whole Starman saga from James Robinson, but The Shade was a character in particular that he did this amazing job of transforming. He works with amazing artists on this book. It's 280 page count, $19.99 regularly, 50% off, only $9.99 to get that whole 12-issue miniseries in a really cool bundle. Remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping from InStockTrades.com, and I want to thank them for continuing to support our show. Our next episode, we are joined by inker Juan Castro and friend of the show Daryl Taylor as we discuss Juan's work on Batwing number 16. Also, he has been doing the ink work on the Arrow digital comic, issue number 20 in particular. We're going to be discussing those and just, his whole process, what it's like to be an inker. We've only had one other inker on the show. We had Bob Wyachek on years ago and had just a great conversation with him. This was a great opportunity for us to really get into the whole inking process, and Juan was very generous with his time, and it was always great to talk to a friend of the show, Daryl Taylor. So that conversation will be coming to you next. Actually, be back in a little bit shorter than a week. I was doing some computer upgrades, so I needed to extend the release of this one, so I'm going to come back a little sooner with that one. And I want to thank everyone for their patience this week and hope you enjoyed this episode. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. Villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian, working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, talking about Hawkman.